Happy Monday, Hokey Doodles. I hope you enjoyed your week off. I know we were crazy busy getting ready for election time.
Yes, Jody has announced her hat in the ring to become a candidate for the federal election in Northumberland Clark. So we are late right now because we had a campaign meeting. So like 5 to 9.
We did. And so TFM Rumble.
Right. I got it.
You got it.
Yeah, carry on.
Okay.
Well, I do this.
So we did take last week off because Dana Metcalf, we had her on the show talking about Newfoundland and all of the joining of the clans, uniting of the clans in Newfoundland, and they were starting their Newfoundland Labrador Accountability Project. So we did stream that live last week. So we apologize that we weren't here with you, but we at least live streamed what was going on in Newfoundland. And down in Newfoundland, everybody, it was the most jabbed province in all of Canada, and they only have a population of just under 600,000 people. And when you have a population that is that small and you're on an island, people talk and they tend to know each other or they're related to each other. And so what has happened with the high injection rate there is everybody is sick. And it's not being hidden like it is in the bigger provinces because they all know each other and they all depend on each other and they're all related in some way, shape, or form. When you talk about 6 degrees of separation, they truly are just 6 degrees separated and they all know each other. So it has become very obvious what happened and that they were all duped by the government and that it was a big, giant propaganda campaign that went horribly, horribly wrong, and people have been injured and people have died and people are suffering. So that was a big topic of the accountability project. One of the other things that I didn't know about and was really surprised to learn about was the fisheries. Now, what our government has been doing is putting quotas on not just livestock and chickens and produce, but they've also put quotas on the fisheries. So Newfoundland, a big portion of their economic stability comes from the fisheries. And what has happened is they have basically dropped all of the quotas that the native Newfoundlanders are allowed to fish. And those quotas that used to be granted to the Newfoundlanders have now been granted to foreign companies, namely China. And on top of that, the government has also granted China permits or licensing to can right in the ocean, right there. So Newfoundlanders are losing their livelihoods. They're losing their health. And it's all due to government corruption. So Newfoundland has decided to come together and actually hold their government accountable. So they're calling it the NLAP. And Dana held this amazing event on April Fool's Day down in St. John's, Newfoundland. It was a crazy trip to get there. I didn't realize how far away St. John's, Newfoundland is, but it took us, I think it was 19 hours to drive to North Sydney in Nova Scotia, which is where you then get on to a ferry, and it's a 7-hour ferry ride over to the island of Newfoundland. And then we had another 10-hour drive to get to St. John's. So it was a 2-day trip, super exhausting. And yes, there is a time difference. They are an hour and a half ahead of us. So it was well worth the trip. I will say that because I'd never been to Newfoundland. But not only while we were there, we got to meet so many amazing people, and the Newfoundlanders are really truly like generous in spirit, kind at heart, and they're hurting. And many of them are willing to talk about their story. They're not, but they weren't willing to go on camera. So there's still an element of fear and shame and guilt and all of these things happening within their island. But at least now there's 7 main groups: the fisheries, the agricultural, the education system, the healthcare system, the policing, even if you can believe it, some of their government are now stepping up and speaking out as well. So it was a really interesting day. There was about 20 plus speakers that Raven had on the stage. It was a long, exhausting day, and the wind was insane. So by the time the event started at 10 a.m. and it went to about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, but it was a good showing for Newfoundland. They had about the same number of people that we have here. About 50 people showed up on a Tuesday from 10 to 5. But good job, Dana. Good on you for bringing everybody together and uniting over the corruption that's going on in our government. So after that, we did get a little bit of sightseeing time. We did go out to Cape Spear, which is absolutely beautiful, and see the lighthouses and hear the waves crash. And we got to see the old armory jail that they used to hold people in that came in off or from the war and prisoners of war. So that was kind of cool. And then we also got to go out to Signal Hill. And Signal Hill, wow, it's like the highest point, I believe. I might be wrong, but I believe it's the highest point in Newfoundland. And the wind was so strong. I stood up on a bench to take a picture, and the wind was so strong it actually started to blow me over. And one of the guys that were with us, thank you very much, Doug, actually like grabbed me and steadied me so I could take the picture. And Ron Clark was there. And for those of you who are involved in the freedom movement, probably know Ron Clark from Alberta. He was there, and he was saying he was walking trying to do a live, but the wind was so strong people couldn't hear him on the live. All they could hear was the wind fighting for the attention. But also he was walking, and all of a sudden he couldn't move forward anymore because the wind was so strong that it actually held him in place. It was insane, but absolutely beautiful. And if you ever get the chance to go down to Newfoundland, I strongly suggest you do. And when you're there, stop in at Trapper John's, which is one of the pubs, and get screeched in and become an honorary Newfoundlander. Trapper John was amazing. I did do the live of him screeching in our group, and there was another group of gentlemen that were there from Toronto, and he screeched us all in. We all kissed the cod, and we all had to say the oath. And no, I'm not going to say the oath for you because it was... I think I screwed it up when I said it the first time, so I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying to say it the third time. But anyway, if you have the chance, go to Newfoundland. But it was a great way for us to kick off the federal election. And yes, while I was in Newfoundland, we got the confirmation that I am now on the federal ballot, running as a candidate for MP for the Northumberland Clark riding. And so we have been hitting roadblock after roadblock after roadblock, which is probably fine because it's probably preparing me very, very well for what's in store once I win. Yes?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm back with you now.
I feel like I've done so much talking.
Yeah, so what happens, what's been going on behind the scenes is we got... it was 3 minutes to 9. We had not planned on doing a show tonight. Our campaign meeting just ended, and so I tried to scramble to get a show going. Rumble's not working. So for those of you who are trying to find us on Rumble and you cannot hear me right now. So this is a pointless sentence, but Michael Chuchong is trying to get us going on Rumble as we speak. And so that's what I was doing behind the scenes. I know quality, that is exciting television, I know, but yeah. So the bottom line is we thought we'd come on and let you know that Jody is now running for federal candidate. And that has been challenges so far. There are There is one debate that has decided not to include all the candidates. There's 7. I get it if there were 20.
Yeah.
I know that Toronto had like 50
100 plus running for mayor.
Yeah, he was more. So, but there's 7. So we have taken issue with that, and we're just working through that with them, and we'll see where we get with that. But there are 4 other debates that Jody's going to be a part of. We just
2 that we're aware of.
No, there's 4.
Oh,
yeah. I'll just give you the dates. You show.
Chris is my communications campaign manager, so he knows my schedule.
Right. So we'll put those live speakings out. Go to Jody's Instagram and you'll follow everything that's going on there. You can go to her website at ledgerwood.ca. See, this is how unorganized we are for this show tonight. We have not even created the ledgerwood.ca banner.
The banner.
Yeah. So there's that. I'll put that up for you. So ledgerwood.ca, you can see our position on everything, or Jody's position on absolutely everything. And then, it's all the little things. It's we're going around and going back and looking at where our signs were put out, and our signs, but not the other signs, have been taken down.
Yes, we put out 50 signs, and at least half of them have already disappeared.
That's right. Yeah, but not the conservative liberal signs, just our signs. So that tells you we've got an uphill battle going ahead with us. But so let's address some of the issues that at a hand. We have said, as on the show, hey, you've been a part of our show. You know how we feel about the party system. We know the party system is no longer beholden to the people.
Correct.
The party system is a self-protecting system. So we have decided to run as an independent, and the blowback that you're getting online. I love how I said we decided, but you're getting the blowback, which is perfect for me. The blowback because of vote splitting. Unbelievable.
And from friends and from, I'll call them the freedom fighter colleagues, people that for the last 5 years I have stood beside, shoulder to shoulder, fought beside, got beat up by police beside, are now attacking me online because I'm not running as a conservative. One, the conservatives vet you before they allow you to run. And the moment they Google my name, 100% I would have been ixnayed on that ballot option for sure. They definitely take my money, but there's no way they would put my name on any of their ballots because I've been fighting against the very makeup of their party and their policies. So that's one reason why I'm not running as a conservative.
Why are you not running as a liberal?
Why am I?
I mean, you got the shirt, right?
I was going to say, we were collecting signatures. We had to collect 150 signatures. Well, minimum 100 signatures to be qualified to put in my nomination papers. But because they go through all those signatures and they do what they can to disqualify names, they recommend that you get 150 signatures. We ended up getting 159. So thank you to the team of people that went out there, Jody and Joyce and Amber and Marcia and Les and Larry. Like, you guys rocked it out of the house. So thank you so much. And of course, my dear partner, Chris, who convinced me it was a good idea to go downtown to Cobourg and Port Hope and talk to the small business owners. And he was right. It was a great idea. And I got to hear what the small business owners, what they were feeling and what they were thinking. And I was really shocked at how many of them actually did sign my signature for candidacy document. So thank you to Cobourg and Port Hope, the small businesses on the main streets. Thank you. What was I saying now? I've lost my train of thought.
I totally wasn't listening. One of us has to keep engaged with the show, right?
I know. That's it. So my first day, I went down to the lawn bowling where my dad was, and I thought, I'll start off getting his signature first. And I was wearing this sweatshirt, And one of the ladies said, sure, I'll sign for you. And she said, and I said, hi, I'm Jody Ledgerwood. I'm John's daughter. I'm running for independent. I'd like to run as an independent in the federal election. But in order for my name to get on the ballot, I have to collect these signatures. Would you be willing to sign to get my name on the ballot? It's not a commitment that you're voting for me. It's just saying, yes, my name can go on. And she said, oh, of course I'll sign. No worries. So you must be running for the Liberal Party, right? And I said, no, I'm running as an independent. And she goes, oh, well, I said, well, what gave you that impression? She goes, well, you're wearing red. This is how strong a color is for people. Even though I'm wearing red and my shirt says, I am free Canadian, hashtag whatever it takes, I was still mistaken as a Liberal. So that was a clear indication for us that should my name get accepted on the ballot, I need to be very, very careful about what colors go on my sign, because no matter what, people think red is Liberal, blue is the Conservatives. So it was a good lesson for us. So the next day when we went out to get signatures, I did not wear red. I believe I wore my right side of history hoodie. So anyway, so that was an interesting tell-all for us. But so we got our signatures, and that was great. We went to hand in the nomination paperwork. I actually called on the Wednesday to make an appointment for the Friday afternoon, because I knew by then all of our team that had gone out with signature gathering that I would have everything back by Friday afternoon. I could drop off my paperwork in person, have my interview, and be acclaimed right away. That was not how it went. I called Wednesday and asked for an appointment, and I was told that the earliest that they would meet with me, the Elections Canada office would meet with me, was Monday after 2:00. Monday, I was in Newfoundland. There's no way I could meet Monday at 2:00. So I explained that I was traveling to Newfoundland and we were leaving Friday. And I was told, well, sorry, that's not our problem. We won't be able to meet with you until Monday after 2:00. We're slammed. We're completely booked. So I was like, oh, okay. And they said, well, you can upload everything online. So Chris and I thought, okay, not a big deal. Chris is very technologically inclined. I am not. If things go wrong, Chris is here. He can help out. So lo and behold, I finally get all my paperwork in. My official agent is all in place. We're good to go. Everything's signed. And then I go to upload everything, and we have issues because the candidacy signature pages are too big. It won't upload. So Chris has to take all of those pages, and he now has to downsize them and do whatever it is that he does so that we can now upload them to the website. So we finally get that in. We go to upload my paperwork, and lo and behold, I have to have my signature notarized. And I missed that because I had intended on having the registrar notarize my paper when I sat down with her. So I did a big run to the office because they're open till 9:00. It's 8:30. I run in, and unfortunately the person who notarizes his signature was not there, but was going to be there Saturday morning at 9 a.m.
Just realized this is a lot of details for really no forward momentum. So let's move on. If we're going to use the platform on the show, let's tell people what you're all about and why you're running. And
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted people to know, because I've also been taking heat online because I should have known, and I've already wasted 2 weeks of election time.
But that's not the case.
That's not the case.
You were wrestling with even running.
I was wrestling with even running, but by the time I decided to run and they announced that we could run, I decided that night that I was going to run. It still took a week to get the signatures, get the paperwork, get my CFO all in place, get my signature notarized, and then upload it. And then when we went to upload it, it says you need a key code to submit it. And the key code you can only get from the elections office.
Sorry, folks, I tried to pull out of the details quagmire, but
No, but I
what
want
people want
people
to know is what you're thinking about
I
doing
know, but
as an
but I
MP.
want people to understand it's not an easy process to run. And even once you get all your paperwork in, you still have to wait another 48 hours for this key code. And then once you get the key code, you think you're done. No, you got to wait another 48 hours or whatever to actually be affirmed. And it's once you're affirmed, then you can get your signs and your pamphlets and your websites. So yes, it's taken us 2 weeks to get everything up and running and going so that you know what our platform is. But we are there. And I'm not the only one that suffered this. Even liberal candidates suffered this. Even conservative candidates suffered this. So there is a big problem with our electoral system and how difficult they make it for people to run as your representatives. So that's something that really needs to be looked at, the whole way that it works. And because Carney called it and gave it the shortest amount of possible time that he could to have an election, 37 days, because they can actually call it and give people, I think it's 51 days. He called it like this last minute. Knowing that it was going to take people a week to 2 weeks to even become qualified to be a candidate. And anyway, so my platform, thank you to Chris, who has been working like a dog. And I mean like a dog. And when I am stressed, I am not the easiest person in the world to deal with. When I'm stressed and I'm being attacked online and then things aren't going right and I've wasted, it feels like I've wasted, but I really haven't. You had to go through the process. And again, the process is the punishment. But Chris has saved the day. Him and Ryan Penn from Take Action Canada. Big giant thank you to Ryan for maneuvering around all these different hubs and DNSs and I don't know, technology words to get the website up and running that Chris labored over intensely to get up so that you know what I'm thinking, because not everybody watches our show. So not everybody knows what I'm thinking and not everybody follows me on Instagram or Facebook. So they don't know what I'm thinking.
They still don't know what you're thinking 5 minutes later.
Chris is thinking I'm long-winded.
Well, detail-oriented is maybe not the best platform for show. You know, let's make a show now.
Okay, let's make a show.
That's right.
So at the end of the day, website's up. My thoughts are on there. But more importantly, it's your thoughts that I want. Because if I'm going to win, then I need to know how to be your voice. What's important to you? But I do have my thoughts up there. Did you want to go through my thoughts? Is that?
I just no. I mean, we're not committed to doing a 1 hour show tonight. Just a short show. So going through all of those things would take hours and hours and hours. We would encourage you to go to ledgerwood.ca and look for yourself and really pour through that website and give us feedback. You know, what are the issues we've missed and whatnot. So there's so much to go through on that website, and we're adding more pages and more issues and more statements daily. I've got a whole big page that just calls everything out coming probably tomorrow. So, you know, we've done a lot of work in putting this thing together. So I would love for people to go see that. But, you know, just in a nutshell, like what are the big issues for us? I know what everyone else is going to be talking about. They're going to be talking about tariffs and they're going to be talking about the economy, and we've weighed in on that. But we've weighed in really more on the voting process, and people need to get back to taking power for their country again.
Exactly. There's a lot of corruption that has been going on in our house, in our legislatures, in our government, in our municipal government as well. And so our main focus, besides rebalancing the power back into the people's hand, because that's where I believe politics should be. That's where I believe our government should be serving the people. After all, they take a really I'm going to say a healthy salary from the people. So if you're going to take that healthy salary and give yourselves raises every year, then you better be delivering for the people. And it means you need to be listening to the people to understand what their concerns are and where they actually want the taxpayer money to be spent. Because I don't remember in all of my adulthood, actually, I don't remember ever being asked where I wanted my taxpayer dollars to be spent. And I definitely don't remember being asked in the last 5 years where the money should be going to. We all just assume that when we pay taxes, that money is going back into our own infrastructure and to care for the Canadian people. What we don't know or didn't know is that money is actually going to pay for memberships in foreign NGO companies. It's going to pay for the WEF. It's going to pay for the UN. It's going to pay for the IMF and the BIS and the trilateral committees and the Bilderbergers and to help the war in Ukraine and to pay for infrastructure building in South Africa and to Syria.
It was like $86 million in Syria, like a week after we find out they're slaughtering Christians like crazy.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So I don't remember being asked if that's where I wanted my taxpayer dollars going. I thought it was going towards our schools, our hospitals, our roads, our lights, our defense. That's where I thought our money was going. And lo and behold, it's not. And that's a problem, especially given the state of our economy right now and how many people are suffering, how many people are homeless, how many people have lost their jobs, how many small businesses were shut down in the last 5 years, how many of our veterans are suffering, how many people right now have been harmed due to the bioweapon injections. And none of this money that we've been putting out have been going to help Canadians.
How much does Canadian make on federal taxes annually?
The federal government, somewhere between $50,000 and $60,000 a year per Canadian.
What
is what the federal?
How much money does the federal government make off annual taxes? Like how much federal taxes does it bring in annually from the country?
So I don't have that exact number, but what I can.
It's approximately 121 billion. So now you understand how much spending is affecting our country.
But that being said, the federal debt in the last 10 years doubled.
Yep.
Doubled so much so that what was it, 172 billion you just said?
121 billion is what they bring in annually.
So that $121 billion isn't even touching the principal of our debt.
Nope.
That $121 billion goes 100% to interest.
Yeah, I don't know what it is for last year, but it's roughly that.
And that interest isn't going to Canadian companies. It's not going to the Bank of Canada. The Bank of Canada doesn't get any of that money. We've actually borrowed a lot of that money from foreign countries. A lot of it's borrowed from China to give to Syria. And us Canadians are not only having to pay back the principal, which our government doesn't have. We don't pay enough taxes to touch the principal. We're only touching the interest. And that money we borrowed was not spent on Canadian soil for Canadian people. That's a problem. That is a giant, giant problem.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to rebalance the power back into the people's hands so that they have a say on where their tax dollars go to. And I have no idea how we are going to decrease the debt without making the people suffer more taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So when they say they're going to cut down on the carbon tax, and we've all seen this great reprieve at the gas tanks, how long do you think that reprieve is going to be when they have this giant debt that they have to pay back and they're not even touching it with the current federal tax base right now? So we know this carbon tax is going to be coming back under a different name, because that's what they do. They just keep adding a new tax, and they give it a new fancy name, and everybody goes, "Ooh!" So whatever is the politically correct thing to care about at the moment, that's what our tax is going to be called. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how many people have thank the Liberals for stopping the carbon tax and bringing down prices at the pump. But the thing is, I've just noticed that the prices went right back up. They sprung right back up.
Mhm.
It was like a day that it went down for about 25 cents or something like that.
Something
It
like
was
that.
119 when I put gas in the car, and then I go back to the same gas station next day, 130 or 132, I think it was. So it's just like right back up. But yet they want to be thanked for giving us a reprieve. So what are your three main keys here?
So rebalancing power back to the people. We just talked about that. And for those that watch the show, we were talking with Richie from Evolve, and he is putting together a blockchain system so that the people can have direct access to their MPs and be able to actually vote on where their dollars are spent, vote on the legislation that's going through. So that is something that I'm really excited to roll out once I win.
Right. And next, this was a big one. This is what most people talk to us about.
Exposing government corruption. Everybody we talked to said corruption in government was their number one concern. They're seeing the money fly out of our pockets. They're seeing legislation that was put into Canadian law way back when to protect us, the Canadian Bill of Rights and our Constitution and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. They see that those pieces of legislation are being ignored. We had the Healthcare Consent Act, and that was being ignored. We talk about Nuremberg, and yet our government acts as if Nuremberg never happened and that the Nuremberg Code doesn't exist. And now I know Canada didn't exactly sign on to the Nuremberg Code, but the fact that it's there and our doctors do take an oath, our government doesn't care. And now we find out that our government is actually bringing in another legislation out in BC called the LPA, which has to do with, what is it? The Legal Professional Act, I think it's called. And that's just as scary, what they did to our doctors by silencing them and taking away their licenses by treating people properly and keeping their medical records private. They are now trying to take out in BC the same powers away from lawyers. So the client attorney privilege, they're talking about going, they're filling those seats on their legislature or their regulator with more bureaucrats instead of lawyers or people that actually understand how the legal system works. So this is the corruption we're talking about. And also the fact that our government gets to appoint the senators. The Senate is what's supposed to keep the government in the House honest. But how honest are you when your job depends on being appointed by the government in power? Obviously, you're going to do what the government in power wants you to do, or you lose your job. Or at the very least, most of the people in the Senate are now appointed by the Liberal government. So we know only friends, families, and donators get those seats, or media that did as the government said, get those seats. So we need to stop the appointment process, because that's only adding to the corruption. Our three separate powers of government are no longer being honored, and nobody is being accountable for anything. So judges need to be elected, no longer appointed, because over 600 of our judges are appointed by the party in power, and were appointed by Liberals. So this is why we're having such a hard time as well in the courts. And of course, the chiefs of police, they're all appointed as well by the party in power. So all of these people's jobs, their employment, their financial security and stability depends on doing what the political or social agenda of the day is by the party in power. That's a problem. We need to put that power back in the people's hands and make it an actual election process and not an appointment process. So that is corruption. And then our third is, let's bring back Canadian core values. You know, this country was built on the supremacy of God. It was built on Christian values. And somewhere along the line, we've lost the love. We're operating from a place of fear. We're operating from a place of investing in immigrants instead of insisting in immigrants invest in Canada, and that's a problem. And we know Canada was built on immigrants, so it has nothing to do with racism or lack of immigration or anything like that. Immigration is a good thing, but it is a good thing when people actually assimilate and adopt the nation's legal system and the nation's policies and the nation's identity. The whole reason why most people leave the country they were born in is because they're looking for a better life, and Canada used to give that better life. And when you're making that decision, it's because things in your own country aren't right. So when you come here, and now all of a sudden we've got this government who is saying we're going to be a post-national state, the first post-national state, and they start chipping away at the Canadian identity, the identity that immigrants came here with nothing, were given nothing, no handouts to come here. But they built this country up from nothingness with their own hands, with their labor. They invested in building a better world, a better country. And our government has systematically destroyed what our ancestors built. And not only destroyed what our ancestors have built, but are now welcoming immigrants in and giving them money to come here instead of saying, you want to come here, you need to invest in Canada. You need to bring your assets with Canada. You need to contribute to the economy. You need to build, much like every other immigrant that came to this country had to do. So we need to get back to our Canadian core values and stop being flexible and bending over backwards to allow everyone else to steamroll the Canadian identity. We need to find ourselves again, and we need to build that back up again. And we got to stop with the demoralization and the division that has been the key component in the last 10 years of destroying our country.
Yeah. So bottom line, the challenge really isn't trying to help run a country. The challenge is getting people to vote in the right way. And they're so fear-based in their voting now. Nobody is no longer believing or voting for what they believe in. They are voting to keep the other color out. And that's just fear-based. That's, we need to vote with courage. And do we think Jody can change government overnight? No, we're focused on a riding. She's not going to be prime minister. We're focusing on this riding and showing people that when they have a politician that works for them, they're back in power, they're back in charge, and they have a say in the future, at least for their little portion of the country, and that they'll fight for them. One of the things is that Mark Carney has said in his campaign speech that he's going to use emergency powers again. He said that. And last time that meant lockdowns for small businesses. That meant bank accounts frozen. So what does that mean? He says he's going to use emergency powers to get projects done. What does that mean? What projects actually need the emergency powers to get finished? And anybody who would vote for that doesn't seem to understand what's going on. And so that's part of the problem, because any liberal candidate that runs and gets in, if Carney wins, they'll have no say for that riding. And if he shuts down small businesses again, like we learned in the past they did, that liberal candidate is in no way going to stand up for your small business. So you need some independent thinkers, and that's not the party system. Jody and I are in that sweet spot. And it's not sweet. It's not a beautiful spot to be in. We are in that spot where we understand government is corrupt. We understand the party system is corrupt. We understand that we have done shows on it ourselves, that the election system is, the election process is rigged. There's election fraud going on in every country on both sides. It happens all the time. And with the advent of early voting and mail-in voting, that just makes it so much easier. So not only are we very, very aware of the fact that people won't vote independent or haven't typically, but also that with election fraud as a possibility, that the odds are very stacked. we still believe that Jody can win this. So we're in this spot where we don't actually have faith in the government or the electoral process anymore.
Correct.
But we're not quite ready to give up, because it's things like this that is like quite literally the last kick of the cat. So it's not from a place of stupidity that we're running, or blind faith, or like half-witted optimism. We understand, but we don't believe the party system. We still believe that democracy can still happen, but we do not believe in the party system right now. And so that's why independent. We
Correct.
believe that people have the power if they so choose to use it, if they so choose to exercise it. And if they vote for somebody who is actually willing to listen to them, then they've got that power, at least with that MP. And it starts with the few and ends into the many, right?
That's it. This federal election is a gift, and it didn't feel like it at first,
No.
but it really is a gift. The world is changing, and the world is waking up to the corruption, and the world is starting to question what they're seeing all around them. So this is prime time to start the change. We've got to start the change at some point in time. And why not now? There are a lot of leaders that stepped up from the grassroots movement in the last 5 years. This is your chance to really lead. This is your chance to make change happen. But you've got to get out of that fear bubble that everybody has been all curled up in, and you've got to get away from the thinking that the people don't have the power to change things, because they do. One voice, one person can do so much, and we've been preaching this for 5 years now. Hitler was one person, and look what he did. Terry Fox was one person. Look what he did. Martin Luther King was one person. Look what he did. If the people would just get behind that independent voice in your riding, that one person has the power to make immense change, or at least start the process of change. I keep hearing, well, in 5 years or 4 years or in 10 years, we'll be ready. We're ready now.
Mm-hmm.
We might not have another election in 4 years or in 10 years. And where is our world going to be if we continue to allow the corruption to continue? And by voting for anybody in the blue, orange, red, or green party, the Borg party is what I've been calling it. If we continue to elect the Borg party, then you are complicit in the corruption. Mm-hmm. You are telling the Borg parties that it's okay not to listen to your voice, that your voice doesn't matter, because the Borg parties operate under the whip system, which means it doesn't matter what the constituents say. It doesn't matter what the Canadian people say. It only matters what the whip says. And I can guarantee you, Northumberland Clark, the whip doesn't care about Northumberland Clark. It's way too small. The whip cares about lining its pockets and keeping its job. And how the whip keeps their job and lines their pockets is by listening to the leader of the party. And how does the leader of the party keep their job? By listening and doing what the lobbyists with all the money say. And not only the lobbyists, but also the foreign international NGO organizations that put the leader into power. And all you have to do is trace back and see where they all went to school. See how they all know each other. And you'll understand the corruption that is afoot.
Yeah, we will never get out of this by doing the same thing we've always done. And the part of the problem is that people have gotten used to the fact that they don't have to take responsibility for their country's future. They can just figure out who's closest aligned to them, or who is the lesser of two evils. Spoiler alert, you're still voting in evil, and then just leave it. They set it and forget it. And that's where we got into this mess. Governments has just been getting worse and worse and worse. The only reason we're calling it government corruption now is because they've become so arrogant and so sure of themselves that they just thought, they've overstepped now. They've gotten too greedy. They've gotten too corrupt. And they just don't care if we know anymore. And that's part of the problem.
Yeah, they're flaunting it with their books and all their publications and their interviews.
Right. And, Mark Carney, we just put it up on ledgerwood.ca. That page goes out tomorrow. But where Mark Carney has been caught in an interview from a couple of years ago saying that he helps set the policies for government that affect climate change. And then he goes and invests in those companies that are going to benefit from those policy changes. He's the example of saying that at the airports, they have to get down to more carbon compliant fuel by 2030. And he's invested in the company that makes that fuel. So he's now admitted that he's he's the most corrupt politician we've seen. We thought Trudeau was the most corrupt politician until now.
Carney's just
Carney's
smarter
way
about
worse.
it.
Yeah, he's way worse. Well,
he's the one strategizing
right.
behind the scenes. Trudeau didn't do the strategizing. He just was the puppet playing out the role. But
Right.
Mark Carney is the one strategizing and making his economical financial moves and then putting that legislation in place so that he benefits.
Right. So they're just not even hiding the corruption anymore. What we used to know as corrupt and conflict of interest and things and criminal activity seems to be the norm. And everybody's just sort of given up that they can do anything. So their way to get out of this is to do the same thing that's always been done. Well, it's not going to work for you. How's it going so far? Not so great. And then there's the other one. There's the other demographic that are the 60 to 70% of those people who don't vote. They've decided that the voting system is corrupt. There's nothing they can do about it. I get that. I understand that. But, what are your options? What are your options with this? The government is still continuing right now. Unless the people want to rise up and take it down, it's not going to go anywhere, and they're just going to get worse and worse and worse. So why not, if you do not vote, why not instead send somebody that is willing to actually make change and make good on their word instead of sending an MP, send a nuke, right? You're not doing anything anyway with that vote. And if you pay taxes, you're participating in the system. You're not above the system. If you use healthcare, you are not above the system. You are participating in the system. Your non-vote is still a vote.
Correct.
And your non-participation is still a participation.
It's compliance and consent to the corruption that's happening.
Right. You're allowing it. You are more complicit in allowing corruption because you're not trying to do anything to mitigate it. It's in a half an hour of your time. If you're not doing anything with that vote anyway, then maybe come down and vote for somebody who actually wants to do something right. Yeah. And in right, meaning Jody will go to Ottawa and she will start telling you what's going on in Ottawa. She will help you learn how to fight the government.
Exactly. And can you imagine right now, election fraud happens because they know they only have to beat the system by 12 to 17%. Can you imagine if 60% of you that don't typically vote actually showed up? They're not prepared to beat the system against 60%. So if 60% of you who don't typically vote actually showed up at the polls, surprise, we're here, the independents would steamroll that house. Mm-hmm. We would have the power 100%. And you would have grassroots movement actually running this country, actually being your voice, and actually doing what you want done. We, in one election, if 60% of you showed up at the polls in one election, we actually could turn this country around. And that's why this federal election is a gift. But you need to get out and you need to cast that vote.
Here's another concerning thought, though, that we just figured out, a number we just found, is that out of all of the 43 million people in Canada, only 27 million are eligible voters. So we're not even sure what to make of that number. We just discovered it yesterday morning. And we don't know how many of those are kids, but how many people are here that can't even vote. So
that's a lot of illegals in our country.
Right. We figured it at about 67 million illegals in our country right now.
Well, I did the quick and dirty math. I said, okay, Ontario's got 14 million people, 12 million. What was it? I think it was was it 11 million or 12 million? No, 14 million people in Ontario. 11 million are actually eligible to vote, and only, was it 10 million actually voted or something like that? Is that what
Right.
it was? But I went, okay, so 14 million from 11 million is 3 million. So extrapolate by saying 14 million goes into 41 million or 42 million exactly 3 times. So you start doing the math 3 times, we've got about 6 million people in Canada that aren't eligible to vote, but are of age to vote.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of people in Canada that probably shouldn't be here. But anyway, that was just quick and dirty math that I did to come up with that number. But the other thing, for those who do vote, those who do participate, if you plan on voting for anyone other than an independent, and I'm saying independent, and I'm going to include in that independent the Christian Heritage Party. I'm going to include the PPC Party. I'm going to include the Libertarian Party. And I'm going to include them in when I say independents as well as actual independents, because they have not sat in our House. They have not held a seat of rule in our House, a seat of power in our House. But the Red, the Liberals, the Conservatives, the NDP, the Greens, and the Bloc Québécois have been sitting in our House with traitors beside them, making decisions for you and I. And not one of those legacy parties have stuck their neck out to say who the traitors in the House are. So if you're voting for somebody who was sitting in the House last session, you very well could be putting a traitor to Canada back in power. Someone who doesn't care about you and someone who committed treason all last session. You may be voting them back into power. And we know that the MPs do what the whips tell them to do, and they get their marching orders from the leaders. So the fact that the leader of the Conservatives, the Liberals, the NDP, the Greens, and the Bloc Québécois have not called out, nor allowed any of their MPs to call out who the traitors are in our government, means that every single one of those parties is complicit in a criminal activity against the people. Every single one of those parties is complicit in treason against the Canadian people. And if you cast a vote for any one of those parties who are hiding and protecting the criminals in our House from being prosecuted as criminals and from and allowing them to continue working and making decisions on your life, if you cast a vote for any one of those parties, you are saying it's okay to protect criminals. It is okay to allow criminal enterprises to run this country. Every vote that is cast for a Liberal Party member, a Conservative Party member, an NDP Party member, or a Green Party member, or a Bloc Québécois Party member is a vote in agreement and approval and consent to criminals running our country. And you don't know who those criminals are, but you are agreeing to allow them to stay in power and not be held accountable for their treasonous acts against Canadians. And that, my friends, is what we're trying to fight against. And you have the power right now to change every single seat in our House by electing an independent. The choice is yours. The power is yours to lose.
So that's to say, we will be campaigning heavy for the next 3 weeks. Jody's got a debate on Thursday, so we cannot do Thursday's show. We're going to take the show as we can take it. We will do our best to make our Mondays and Thursdays, but we are going to be heavy with a lot of things that we are, it's 24/7 right now.
Yeah.
The show, unfortunately, is a big endeavor for us, and we may have to put that on
Put some
hiatus
reruns
for
up
a few
for you.
weeks.
But we
Yeah.
are going to try and see if we can stream the Brighton Lions debate in Brighton. The doors open at 6:30. The debate starts at 7 o'clock in Brighton at the King Edward Arena and Community Center. So if you're in the Brighton area, maybe come on out and see how we do. And I would love to hear your feedback. If we can stream it, we will, but I don't know if we can.
It would most likely be on Jody's Instagram at Jody Ledgerwood. If it's going to go live, it's most likely not going to be live here. We just don't have the setup to do that remotely. So it would be on Jody's Instagram. So watch for that Thursday night. Other than that, we will see you when we see you.
So get out and vote. And if you're willing to help, go on to ledgerwood.ca and
Get involved.
Help us canvass door to door. Help us put up signs. Help us on social media. Share the message out everywhere. We are up against algorithm blocks. So whatever you can do to help us, that would be fabulous.
All right. So we are going to go back to campaigning. Thank you for your support as usual, and keep an eye out for us, and spread the word. If you're in the Northumberland Clark area and know somebody who is, definitely spread the word that they have a choice that will fight for them. All right, everybody. Good night. Thanks for watching. We'll see you hopefully next Monday
or Thursday, if we're lucky.
Okay. Good night, everybody.